My wife and I used to have this running joke about our kids. We'd say we'd lose track of how many people were in the house if we kept having so many children. That's definitely in the category of dad jokes, but it started to get old even for me around the time we had our 8th kid. By then, the house was in such a constant state of disorder that it wasn't even funny anymore. It got to the point that it was a little embarrassing. Maybe even a fire hazard. I guess we were lucky that it wasn't a fire that made us come to our senses about keeping the house a little more organized. But I'd argue what actually happened could have been just as bad, if not worse. It's one of those things you would struggle to believe on TV, but when you see it happen to your own family, you aren't afforded the luxury of disbelief. I always thought a house full of kids and animals would be its own security system. I mean, with 10 humans and a dog and some other creatures, you'd think there would always be at least one of them awake to sound the alarm if they noticed something. But if the business as usual state of the household is absolute chaos, nobody ever knows what's going on enough to decipher between normal and not normal. And even I can struggle sometimes with telling whether or not something one of my kids is doing is normal. Like a 5-year-old boy's drawings, for instance. They always look kind of deranged and manic, just because a 5-year-old only knows how to scribble with crayons. But for the most part, they're harmless. 90% of them are the same thing anyway. Just a bunch of stick figures with names and a couple defining features here and there. Maybe a table or a chair, and with boys, sometimes there's a gun or a decapitation or some crude act of violence as seen in movies and video games. But that's all normal kid stuff. At least I think so. Every once in a while, though, something a kid of mine does makes me do a double take. Most recently, it was my youngest son, Brandon. I honestly forgot exactly how old he was when this happened, but I think he was around 4 or 5 years old. The first thing I noticed was that he wasn't sleeping right. I wake up at dawn every day to go to work, and usually the only other person who's awake in the house at that time is the dog waiting for me to let it out. However, one morning, Brandon was sitting at the dining room table, lazily scribbling on a piece of paper with a bunch of crayons around him. It was like he'd been up all night just layering colors over the same piece of paper with a picture of the family on it. Hey bud, what you doing there? Drawing. Well, I can see that, but what are you drawing? Is that mommy and I and your siblings? Maybe I'm just a silly old man, but it looks like you drew too many people, buddy. There's only 10 of us, plus the dog and cat and,
No, I can count to 10. I'm just drawing my friend, too.
Oh, your friend is, pretty tall there, buddy. Where'd you meet them?
Here.
Here? In the house? When?
I don't really remember. I saw her last night, though. Dad, is she allowed in the house?
A chill ran down my spine. I froze for a moment while my little boy stared me down the way that only children can. When they ask you a question you are not prepared to answer. Don't worry about it, kiddo. You probably just dreamed it up.
Okay.
I just didn't want to freak him out, or tell the family and have them freak out. Every once in a while, a kid will make something up and believe themselves. But I just had a funny feeling about this one. This was one of those cases when a kid sees something they weren't supposed to see, and they weren't even aware it was wrong. I figured I'd let him at least stay calm for the moment. I knew my wife was going to be home all day, so I went ahead and went off to work despite the goosebumps. But for the whole day, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I tried to distract myself with a task, but every time I got into something, I would get distracted with another realization, some new pair of dots that I connected. I knew I had a lot of kids and the house was always a little messy, but recently things had gotten worse. Things had started going missing or showing up in the wrong place. Misplaced pieces of sentimental clothing, toys that were fine one evening and broken in the morning, and nobody fessing up to getting out of bed past their bedtime. Little things. My heart was racing by the time I got home, and it sank when I saw my son in the exact same spot when I left 8 hours ago. By then, there were several more drawings in all different colors of crayon. They were all basically the same thing. The classic family portrait, where everyone in the family was one color in one drawing and all different colors in the others. But in every single one, there was a figure in deeply pressed black wax with a distorted face and long, messy hair. That's when I knew I had to do something. I left right away and bought a bunch of security cameras along with a whole new set of power tools. I spent the evening drilling holes and mounting cameras in the corners of the hallways in the living room, and even some of the bedrooms. And each one I tried to hide with some out-of-season holiday decorations, so they wouldn't be obvious to any would-be intruders. Honestly, I was hoping I'd just gone crazy. That I'd gotten so overworked and scatterbrained that I let the imaginations of a kindergartner get to me. But the very next morning, everything came to light. There really had been someone sneaking into the house. A woman, digging through my family's laundry and trying on her clothes, rummaging through my children's toy chests and stealing the most valuable items she could find, using my bathrooms to relieve herself, and even eating the food out of the kitchen I worked so hard to keep stocked for my family. She even had the audacity to drink the milk straight out of the jug, spreading her germs to every single person in the house. I don't know how my stupid dog didn't raise hell when it saw this woman, but I guess she was some kind of dog whisperer, or maybe my dog is just a spineless coward, because all I saw my dog do was run away and hide. I don't know how, but I guess my youngest son was lying awake one night and caught a glimpse of her, unsure if it was one of his sisters, his imagination, or something else entirely. Of course, I called the cops immediately and had the woman arrested that night. We made sure she faced the proper punishment of the law. But I still have nightmares about those happenings. I always kick myself, and my wife admits it too. We always think, maybe illogically, maybe reasonably, that if we kept the house a little more tidy, we would have noticed the evidence of that woman's intrusion before it got to that point.